There have been cross-border exchanges between Israel and Hezbollah for the first time since the start of the ceasefire last week. Hezbollah started it by firing 2 mortars towards Har Dov. The IDF response came hours later with a wave of airstrikes in Lebanon. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
Any hope that the 60-day ceasefire in Lebanon would completely stop incoming fire ended abruptly when Hezbollah fired 2 mortars targeting an IDF outpost on Har Dov. No damage was caused. Hezbollah claimed that they targeted Israel in response to what they called repeated Israeli violations of the ceasefire by Israeli troops inside Lebanon. Hezbollah termed its action an initial warning to Israel. The IDF response came only hours later with a wave of airstrikes, including deep inside Lebanon. Fighter jets hit Hezbollah operatives and dozens of rocket launchers and facilities. The IDF also struck the launcher used to fire the 2 mortars at Mount Dov. Israeli officials vowed that Israel will have a harsh response to any ceasefire violation.
I want to emphasize, Israel is committed to the successful implementation of the ceasefire, but we will not accept a return to the situation as it stood on October 6, 2023. If violations occur, Israel will enforce.
Israeli political and military leaders said that Israel remains obliged to the fulfillment of the conditions of the ceasefire agreement, but demanded that the relevant parties in Lebanon fulfill their responsibilities and prevent Hezbollah's hostile activities. Otherwise, Israel has the right and obligation to do so.
And joining us now with more on the status of the ceasefire is Shiri Fein-Grossman, former head of the Foreign Policy and Regional Affairs Branch at the National Security Council. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Idar. Happy to be here.
So it didn't take long for Hezbollah to breach the ceasefire, but for now, despite an exchange of fire, are both sides still committed, still determined to uphold it?
Well, it seems so, pretty much. I mean, look, the agreement has made it very not clear. Everything is not clear about it, but the ambiguity is not a coincidence. Israel is trying to set a new standard where it doesn't sit still anymore to any attempts, any future attempts to attack it. It won't stand anymore just idly by why Hezbollah are piling up and continually checking the line and to see what's a violation, what's not a violation. The agreement says, and then that's more of the clear part, that Lebanon is supposed to prevent any action of attack against Israel, and the IDF is there to enforce it. Unlike previously, like we saw after 2006, that we didn't see any action from UNIFIL or others, and Israel has stopped counting on others to do what it needs to be done to protect its citizens.
And that actually leads me exactly to my next question. I mean, where are the peacekeeping forces? Where is the Lebanese army? I mean, are we truly expected to believe that this time around they'll be effective? Or do you really see that enforcement will inevitably fall solely on Israel?
Yeah, well, we see from the first moment, we've seen thousands of residents of South Lebanon, which most of them and large portions of them are Hezbollah operatives. That's who are the residents of the South Lebanon villages. They've been totally brainwashed and educated by Hezbollah and trained to be operatives, and everything they're doing daily is pushing the lines. Just today we heard of a shepherd being killed, and that's exactly things that we saw between 2006 to 2024. Hezbollah keeps pushing the line, trying to manipulate the agreement and the international law and international resolutions, and Israel is forced by global players to adhere by it. Well, now we're seeing somewhat of a precedent that Israel is trying to put in place, where it's no longer counting on international and Lebanese forces, but it's operating itself. Look, time will tell what will be well this will be shaped like. I mean, we haven't seen a major escalation yet. We could get there, but it's really a matter of Lebanon and how forceful and how seriously it will take this new reality, while where Israel is not willing to take it anymore, and it's not in a good strategic place in light of what's going on in Syria as well.
Now, Defense Minister Katz just today issued a threat saying that if Lebanon does not uphold the ceasefire, that Israel will no longer differentiate between Hezbollah and between Lebanon. I mean, do you think this is the right course of action for Israel?
Well, look, it's a stick or a carrot. Israel, right up till now, we haven't seen it use that it didn't target anyone outside really of the Hezbollah or Shia affiliated population in Lebanon, and that gained her a lot of support and legitimacy within the Lebanese, population. Having said that, the agreement states that the Lebanese army must come and enforce these violations south to the Litani and cross the border with Israel. And if Lebanon is not serious about that, then that puts also Israel and the region in a bind. And hopefully the mediators, France and the US, will be more forceful in forcing the Lebanese army and government to do what it's supposed to do.
Though we already are seeing accusations of Israel responding too aggressively, Biden administration officials have called on Israel to what they call ease the enforcement. I mean, is this a sign that the mediators, the United States, France, are willing to once again look the other way when it comes to Hezbollah?
Yes, unfortunately, it seems that way. Look, nobody has, let's say, broken the deal yet, these are bad signs. This shouldn't be what's been said publicly. If you want to say it discreetly, then that's the message you can have to the Israeli government, and it could be much more effective. The U.S. and France and other allies, if it wants to be successful in this, it must show 100% support in Israel in public sphere, showing Hezbollah, then that's it. That's the end of the road, Hezbollah and Lebanon. You must keep the international resolution and you must respect them. And this, this is a precedent for the world to see. Do UN resolution mean anything? Security Council resolution, up till now, from the Lebanese point for Israel, it really meant nothing. And so this is a global issue. It's not only a Middle Eastern issue.
Absolutely. Well, Shiri, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has issued a dire ultimatum to Hamas, warning of severe consequences if the hostages are not freed before his January 20th inauguration. More on this from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump issued a stark warning to Hamas on Monday night, stating that if the hostages are not released by his inauguration on January 20th, there will be all hell to pay. The comment, posted on his Truth Social platform, came just 2 days after Hamas released a propaganda video showing American-Israeli hostage Eden Alexander pleading with the president-elect to secure his release. It also followed an announcement by the IDF that Hamas killed American-Israeli Omer Nutra on October 7th and has been holding his body hostage ever since. Trump stated, "Everybody is talking about the hostages who are being held so violently, inhumanely, and against the will of the entire world in the Middle East. But it's all talk and no action." He added that if the hostages are not released, those responsible would face consequences harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. Former Governor Mike Huckabee, nominated as the next U.S. ambassador to Israel in early November, echoed Trump's statements overnight in a post on X. He wrote, "America needs to exact severe consequences for kidnapping and murdering American hostages." Hostage negotiations are ongoing, with Trump reportedly working closely with U.S. President Joe Biden on a new deal heavily mediated by Egypt. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Antony Blinken met on Monday with Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer. During the meeting, Blinken reiterated the importance of bringing all the hostages home and ending the war in Gaza.
And while Trump made clear his stance on the urgency of the return of the hostages, where exactly do hostage negotiations currently stand? ILTV's Ariella Lachiani is at Hostages Square in Tel Aviv with more.
Yes, thank you, Ladar. So heartbreaking developments this week in the hostage crisis as Hamas released a chilling video of Israeli-American hostage Idan Alexander pleading for his life, while Israel also confirmed the tragic death of Omer Nutra, another American-Israeli who had been held hostage since October 7th, 2023. Now, hostage negotiations remain complex as talks in Cairo involving Hamas, Israel, and also mediators from Qatar, Egypt and Turkey continue, and the primary obstacle in these negotiations is Hamas's demand for a complete ceasefire and also a total withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip, both of which are terms which Israel firmly rejects. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has actually stated that any ceasefire must be temporary and also contingent on a hostage release. Now, meanwhile, US officials, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken and also National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby, are also increasing pressure. Blinken actually met with Israel's Minister of Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer, to emphasize the importance and the need for progress. Now, adding to the tensions is President-elect Donald Trump, who issued a stark ultimatum warning Hamas of consequences if the hostages are not returned by January. Now, will this help? We don't know. Only time will tell. However, as negotiations are dragging on, families are growing more and more desperate, and time is quite frankly running out for many of the hostages. Many of them are in critical condition, facing neglect and starvation. So every second is crucial.
Every second is crucial. Thank you, Ariella. And moving on, former U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor Victoria Coates is visiting Israel to discuss her new book, The Battle to Save the Jewish State. Victoria has held numerous top roles in politics over the past 2 decades, and ILTV's Mayan Hoffman caught up with her Monday evening at the Misgav Institute for National Security and Zionist Strategy in Jerusalem. Let's take a look.
I want to get started by actually talking a little bit about the conflict. Your book, obviously centers on October 7th and the aftermath and what we have seen. What do you believe caused Israel's shift from the peace from the of the Abraham Accords that we had, this wonderful peace and prosperity, to what we had on October 7th and now the multiple wars and fronts that have ensued?
No, it was really an extraordinary kind of trajectory from September 20th of 2020, when President Trump announced the Abraham Accords. We had the wonderful signing ceremony on the South Lawn of the White House, and it looked like we were headed towards, a new era for the Middle East. It took just 3.5 years of the Biden-Harris administration returning to the Obama-era policies of embracing Iran, of trying to elevate the Palestinians as an equal to Israel, to result in October 7th. And it really was very striking to me last spring that you had these two clear trajectories. You can see the policies that come to these results. And I thought that needed to be front and center in front of everybody as we went into the election, and then as a new administration started to form.
So how is it possible that what we saw on October 7th didn't just stay in Israel, but in fact, we started to see it really spread all the way to the United States, to the college campuses, the rise in anti-Semitism? What do you believe connects those two entities?
Well, and that's why I think it's important. This particular book, the subtitle of which is How Israel and America Can Win, was written by an American to talk about what's happening in our country, because this isn't a Jewish issue or an Israeli issue. This is a Western civilization issue, and they might be coming for Israel right now, but the United States is next. Make no mistake about it. And so I was very honored. My old boss, Senator Ted Cruz, wrote the foreword of the book all about what is happening on U.S. campuses, and what he did last year in Congress with Representative Elise Stefanik, who's about to become our UN ambassador. I think she'll do a great job defending both the United States and Israel at that questionable body. But then there's a ton in the book about the history of the U.S.-Israel alliance, why it is important, and why these folks have gone through academia to try to undermine that relationship and cast the legitimacy of both of our countries into question.
So, Victoria, let's go back to this whole idea in your book that you talk about this tie between people who hate Israel, anti-Israel haters, are also anti-American. They actually hate America. Explain to me the premise of this and how you know this is true.
Now, this is the most extraordinary phenomenon, and it dates back actually all the way to the 60s in the United States, became particularly virulent in the 90s on, and it's called settler colonialism. And the concept here is that the United States and Israel uniquely are countries where settlers came and took over from the indigenous people lands that were rightfully those of others, and that they are inherently racist, inherently imperial. I mean, regardless if you're an inclusive democracy, regardless if you're the product of immigrants, but you're still imperial and racist. And for that reason, fundamentally illegal. And to spare everybody else, I went through all of the college curricula that are teaching this at our finest schools in the United States. This is Penn, this is Columbia, this is Harvard. Go down the list. It's all of our Ivies, all of our great state universities have these curricula that are peer-reviewed articles about how the ICC should declare Israel illegal, and then by extension the United States.
Now, we've had these last 4 years under the Biden administration. As you mentioned, we went from the height of the Abraham Accords to where we are today. But there was different results in the elections, and Kamala Harris did not win. In fact, former U.S. President Donald Trump is now our president-elect, and in another month and a half, we're going to see him in the White House. So give me a vision. How are things going to change?
I think we're down to 52 days. Not that I'm counting, but no, I think this was a big issue in the election, because you had a lot of Jewish Americans who found that they were unable to pull a trigger as they had historically for the Democrats, and you had a lot of Muslim Americans who actually didn't like what the Biden administration was doing, but did like the fact that they knew where Trump stood. And that's kind of the paradox that got us to the Abraham Accords, is Trump's historic actions standing with Israel, his move of the embassy, the recognition of the Golan Heights. You can go down the list. That led Arab partners and neighbors to say, okay, we know where you stand. We want to stand with you. This is what we will do. President Trump will bring that clarity of vision. I think he will bring that unabashedly pro-Israel stance, because he understands this is a practical matter for the United States. I wrote the book because the United States needs Israel. We need Israel in the region, and we need Israel globally to be a partner and ally to us. And that's what I think Donald Trump will focus on.
Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
A single rocket was fired at Israel from southern Gaza. It was downed by air defense, and there were no injuries or damages. The rocket was launched from the Khan Yunis area, triggering alarms in Israeli border communities. Meanwhile, day 424 of the war in Gaza, the IDF announced it eliminated 7 Hamas terrorists involved in the October 7th massacre. IDF forces are continuing Gaza operations to expose the enemy's methods and dismantle its remaining military capabilities. And the Minister for the Negev, Galilee and National Resilience, Yitzhak Wasserlof, announced he would relocate his office to the Galilee for the duration of the rehabilitation efforts of northern Israel. He made the announcement at a session of the Knesset Internal Affairs Committee on the matter. Wasserlof said he intended to make the move to closely experience the challenges on the ground faced by the northern residents and personally oversee the rehabilitation process. He added there was a lot of work to do to regain the trust of the North and encourage them to return home. Returning residents to their homes in the North is one of Israel's stated war goals. There are still tens of thousands of displaced residents who are unable to return home. And as anti-Semitism continues to grow across the globe, specifically on college campuses, the World Jewish Congress is stepping up to make sure young Jewish communities worldwide feel supported and seen. Let's take a look.
With anti-Semitism surging worldwide, unity between Jewish communities and Israel has never been more crucial. The World Jewish Congress, or WJC, is at the forefront of this mission, working tirelessly to strengthen these bonds and ensure the global Jewish community remains resilient and connected. Representing over 100 communities across 6 continents, the World Jewish Congress's mission centers on fostering solidarity and upholding the principle Kol Israel Arevim Ze Bazeh. All Jews are responsible for one another. This connection between Jews worldwide and Israel is a cornerstone of their work.
We've been in a very, very difficult and challenging period, and we don't see this relenting anytime soon. We also know that if there's something that works, being the tip of the sword, both in terms of the challenges of the Jewish people, but also in terms of the solutions, it's exactly that younger generation of leaders.
The World Jewish Congress ensures that every Jewish voice is heard, from bustling cities to remote villages. By building bridges between diaspora Jews and Israel, the organization reinforces a shared identity and mutual support system. On college campuses where anti-Semitic incidents have increased, World Jewish Congress initiatives provide vital support. They engage with students facing hostility, offering resources and advocacy to combat the growing challenges of encampments and anti-Israel rhetoric.
What we do on campus is we empower young people like me to take our futures in our hands and use the resources that WJC provides, like staff and educational resources, to really spread our message and ensure that we're connecting and protecting the Jewish students on our campuses. At the crux of the work that I do is making sure that Jewish students in my community feel that they have a resource to go to when they feel that something has happened on campus.
Through programs like Next Gen, the World Jewish Congress empowers young leaders to strengthen ties with Israel and stand against hate. These initiatives create a global network of changemakers ready to defend and celebrate Jewish heritage.
Every country has their own Jewish community organization, and WJC is basically like a conglomerate of all the organizations. So in terms of how they help students, they enable us to run our own community projects. So us fellows have to come up with our own projects for what will best help the community, and then WJC support us through resources and mentoring.
As threats intensify, the World Jewish Congress continues to champion unity, ensuring that Jews worldwide and Israel stand together, strong, protected, and united.
We have so many challenges, but we also know that there's much more that unites us than separates us. Jewish organizations need to work together with partners such as the JNF because we all want the same thing. We want to have a better Jewish future and a better Jewish tomorrow. The young people are going to empower it. The spirit of Jewish unity is what's going to make it happen.
The World Jewish Congress reminds us unity is our greatest strength. In facing anti-Semitism, supporting Israel, and empowering the next generation, they ensure that the Jewish people remain connected and resilient.
And now we want to give a big congratulations to our very own Emily Schrader for receiving the Sylvan Adams Bonei Tzion Prize, awarded for her contributions to the State of Israel through journalism and activism. The Nefesh B'Nefesh Bonei Tzion Award recognizes the achievements of Anglo-Olim and their contribution to the State of Israel. Awarded the Young Leadership Award, Emily has proved to be a voice of the younger generation when it comes to shedding light on Israel-Iran relations and the ever-growing alliance between Iranians against the regime and Israelis. So here at ILTV, we congratulate and applaud Emily for this achievement. It is so well-deserved. Congratulations, Emily. And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, and temperatures should reach lows of around 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, mostly sunny skies are expected alongside cold temperatures set to reach highs of only 19 degrees Celsius or 67 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Ladar Gavelazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.